dear Minister Halicki, dear Ms. Wendel, dear Ms. Guy, dear Mrs. Barros, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the FTTH conference. It's a pleasure to see you all here in Warsaw. I have two things that I would like to say right at the start. First, you have had an incredibly busy year since our last meeting at the FTTH conference in Stockholm. And second, I'm increasingly optimistic about the future of FTTH. And not only that we see FTTH needed, we ask for fiber all the way today, throughout Europe. So, what have we been doing as a council since we met last year? Well, plenty, I can tell you. We've been actively engaged with policymakers on practical matters, bringing our expertise and experience to bear on issues like how to reduce the cost of rolling out FTTH infrastructure, when and where this can make a difference and where it won't. We have also been actively engaged with policy development and on the type of measures that policymakers need to put in place to ensure the rapid deployment of FTTH by commercial operators. We have also worked very closely with the finance community to look at issues around funding, issues around the industry structure, and the need to create the right conditions to allow investors to make the necessary long-term investments in infrastructure. We continue to run our Investor Day events throughout Europe, which give service providers and FTTH project managers the chance to meet and engage with the investment community. We have also been talking with the new European commissioners. Commissioner Oettinger and Vice President Ansip and their teams are already working on the next regulatory framework, and they are doing so in a very open and constructive way. We hear a lot about net neutrality today, but one of the biggest challenges for us as an organization is to ensure that we have a proper understanding of technological neutrality. While we all agree that market players are best placed to make technology choices in well-functioning markets, that view is turned on its head when markets are characterized by market failure. In Europe, the fixed access network market is characterized by market failure in every one of the 28 countries in the European Union. And that's why the fixed access network market is regulated in every one of those countries. The problem is that today you can make almost any technology choice and it will be capable of delivering the speed that policymakers are looking for. However, if you choose today and limit yourself, what will that help you with tomorrow? Unfortunately, when it comes to technology choices, policymakers say it's none of their business and are reluctant to get involved. Meanwhile, the dominant companies are free to choose the technology that solves their short-term problems, but does not meet the long-term aspiration of Europe's citizens. To be clear, the FTTH Council Europe is not asking policymakers to specify the actual technology they would like to see, but we believe that they should, at a minimum, specify the performance characteristics of the candidate technology in more detail, whether that is upload speed, service uptime, or ability for the physical network to be unbundled. In other words, can the network be shared with rival operators to encourage competition in retail services? The fact that policymakers do not specify these characteristics does not make sense in the context of the European regulatory framework. To give Commissioner Oettinger and Vice President Ansip credit, they are approaching their task in a very open and constructive way, and they are clearly seeking out the best way to proceed for everyone in the industry today. Let me say, however, I think it's absolutely vital that we put consumers at the heart of this discussion. We know that consumers will pay for higher speeds once they understand what they can actually do with those higher speeds. If we have well-informed consumers who are able to choose from a range of suppliers, we will have a dynamic and responsive market. And that will benefit not just the individual consumer, but society in general, and even the broadband industry itself. Our research has found that service providers receive higher revenues from FTTH customers than they do from DSL customers. 46% higher on average, in fact. This is not just because higher speeds can often command higher prices, but FTTH subscribers tend to buy additional services from their service providers continuously. When people are given the option to do more with their broadband connection, we see that they grab it with both hands. However, unfortunately, the current wave of confusing and sometimes misleading advertising from service providers can undermine not just consumer trust, but also the transition from low to high-speed broadband networks. This misleading advertising may reduce the customer's willingness to pay for better services, which in turn would reduce the income that operators can earn, and therefore the amount they can spend on new network investments. The issue on transparency in broadband advertising is not simply one of user rights, although, of course, customers should get what they pay for. We believe it's crucial for them and an issue that could affect the development and the take-up of advanced networks and services, which could have a much more significant impact, both on the service provider's ability to invest, but also on our general economy. Turning to the subject of the digital divide, I'm not the only one speaking on that today. We know that customers and consumers in the major towns and cities are likely to receive the network and services they want and need on a purely commercial basis. However, for residents of less densely populated areas, the use of public funds to support the widespread deployment of FTTH is both needed and justified. It is justified because these networks have the potential to deliver enormous social and economic benefits to the communities and to the countries that use them. Many of the potential applications of FTTH, such as home working and home-based healthcare monitoring of elderly, have significant positive impacts associated with them, which spill over, of course, into other areas of society. In the case of home working, just as an example, it could reduce traffic congestion on the roads, allowing other commuters to save time on their journeys as well as helping the environment. The economics of better broadband are not in doubt. It is well established that higher broadband penetration and economic development go hand in hand. But now evidence is also emerging that faster broadband speeds have even greater impact. A doubling of a country's broadband speed produces an increase in GDP of 0.3% on average, and further doublings in speed produced further increases, according to a study conducted by Ericsson, Arthur D. Little, and the Chalmers University of Technology in Gothenburg. In Germany alone, the Columbia Institute of Teleinformation calculated a significant impact in investments in ultra-fast broadband networks, bringing FTTH to half the country, would deliver the equivalent of 0.6% annual growth in GDP over a 10-year period, and create more than 500,000 construction jobs. Of course, Germany is not the only country that could benefit from FTTH investments. In the context of the new Commission's, whose mandate is to overcome the stagnation in the European economy, such investments would create literally hundreds of thousands of construction and telecom jobs in the short term, while boosting business productivity and growth, especially in knowledge-based industries in the medium term. President Juncker has already identified the need for Europe to fill in an infrastructure gap. We fully agree, and note that such initiatives drive both the short and long-term benefits that Europe actually needs right now. Now, at the start of this speech, I noted that I'm increasingly optimistic about the future, and for many good reasons. The main reason is that I see a new enthusiasm for rolling out FTTH all across Europe. This is driven largely by private commercial interest, but the public sector today is also making a very important contribution, taking fiber to places where the private interest alone wouldn't reach. I see a new recognition in the European Commission of the need for long-term investments in infrastructure, and I see the recognition echoed by the member states. When I look at countries like Ireland, where we see Vodafone investing with the energy utility to reach a quarter of all households, we see the incumbent reacting, and we see the Irish government taking the initiative to drive fibre even further and deeper to cover the final third of the population. And I also look to Poland, of course, and I see their proposal to build on the investments made under the previous round of European structural funds and use them to drive fibre further into access networks today and over the coming years. I see the strategy they have worked on and developed over the last few years, and it's starting to have a big impact today. I see the European Commission's investment package, which seeks to stimulate strategic investment of 315 billion euros. And I see the potential projects identified by the Joint Task Force of the Commission and the EIB include many network infrastructure and especially fibre investments. However, if public sector finance, assistance or support is to be given to a broadband network, surely that network must be designed to be serviceable for the next 10, 20 or 30 years. Putting public funds into short-term solutions is a waste of taxpayers' money. Some countries in Europe have already made that mistake and are wondering what to do now. Now that they see their more forward-thinking neighbors opt for an approach that delivers better performance and is ready for the future. We still have a lot of work to do to bring FTTH to the whole of Europe. The battle is not yet won, but I have a strong feeling and a sense that we are on the right track. We at the Fibre to the Home Council Europe will continue to insist that FTTH is essential to Europe's future. It's essential for the economic development of countries in Europe. It's essential for social development in Europe. It's important today, and it will only become more important over the next decade and beyond. So, by that, I would like to welcome you to the FTTH conference and welcome to the future. Thank you.